Does our society have a problem with false rape allegations? There is this huge amount of cultural momentum to believe that false rape allegations are a serious problem in our society. This is an idea that is circulated within police departments and is the major reason why rape cases almost never end in conviction. For some reason, YouTube decided to recommend this video to me. It was created by a criminal defense attorney and an ex-cop. The video is mostly promoting public hysteria about false rape allegations and characterizing them as this huge problem that we all need to be aware of and fight against. Here are some of the topics that were discussed in this video. A couple of the topics that really stuck out to me were there are a lot of reasons for an alleged victim to make something up, and regret sex, buyer's remorse. I saw that the general message of this video was to claim that it's extremely easy to falsely convict someone of rape just by making an accusation. So I decided to write a response. Here is my response. I said, "Hi everyone, I'm here to myth bust things that you heard in this video. Rape and sexual assault are the most underreported crime. Only somewhere between 5 to 20% of sexual assault is reported to police. Of those assaults that are reported, only about 2% end in conviction. And even out of those convictions, 80% are child victim cases. So less than 1% of adult women who report sexual abuse will see their offender convicted. Sexual assault is incredibly common in our society. 1/4 of women are sexually assaulted in their lifetime. 1 out of 6 boys are sexually assaulted before the age of 18. Reasons for underreporting include the fear of not being believed, which is understandable because of misleading information like what you have heard in this video. False reports of rape are extremely rare. They do happen sometimes, but those instances are sensationalized, blown out of proportion, and have led to an exaggerated fear in our society of false reports. I will give you some resources below to read more about false reports. They are estimated to occur in 2 to 8% of reports, with a 2015 meta-analysis putting the number at about 5%. But what is important to keep in mind is that this number is the same estimate for false reporting of any other crime. So false reports of rape do not occur any more often than any other crime. If you want to be protecting your men and boys, consider this. Men are 40 times more likely to be sexually assaulted in their lives than to be falsely accused of sexual assault. So if we want to be protecting our men and boys, we should be believing victims who report abuse. The myth that it is easy to falsely accuse someone of rape and have them convicted is just that, a myth, and a very destructive one at that. In fact, rape and sexual assault is convicted at 1/10 the rate of other violent crimes like murder and domestic violence. It is exactly because of the myth that women often lie about being raped that makes rape and sexual assault the hardest crime to convict someone of. 99% of victims do not have their offenders held accountable. Failing to convict rapists is a far larger problem in our society than false reports of sexual abuse. Because of these harmful myths about rape, so few offenders are held accountable that rape is effectively decriminalized in our society. The reason this police officer thinks that false reports are a problem is because our police officers have a culture of disbelieving rape victims. It is a cycle of disbelief that perpetuates itself. Officers don't believe the victim, so don't investigate the crime, don't forward the case to prosecution, or prosecution declines to charge because of little investigation, which leads to most cases being declined, most offenders not being convicted, which then feeds into the myth that women often lie about being raped, which leads to not believing victims. And on the cycle goes. Also, the claim that these cases have no evidence is a fallacy. The victim's testimony is evidence. It is extremely valuable evidence, in fact, because she is an eyewitness to the crime. The victim's testimony is different from just an accusation. Anyone can say, "This person raped me." That is an accusation. But when you listen to the victim's testimony, you are examining the evidence. Fact finders can and are expected to be able to judge whether or not the victim is telling the truth. You can do that through examining how detailed and consistent the victim's account is, and by observing them while they speak and judging their credibility. In most states, the victim's testimony does not need to be corroborated. You are legally allowed to charge and convict someone with no other evidence than the victim's testimony. In fact, in Minnesota, the law specifically states that the victim's testimony does not need to be corroborated. This is the same as any other crime. There are people who are convicted of robbery based off of only the victim's testimony and without even recovering the stolen property. If you think this should not be the case, that is a moral judgment and is not in line with the law. Saying, "I cannot find guilt based on one witness's testimony," can get you thrown out of sitting on a jury. You cannot make judgments on a case until you have examined the evidence, which means listening to the victim's testimony. Also, people are convicted of murder based on far less evidence than what is demanded of rape victims. In fact, people are convicted of murder based on circumstantial evidence, which means the prosecution did not even have an eyewitness. People being falsely convicted of murder occurs 15 times more frequently frequently than people being falsely convicted of rape. The reason so many men think that they are falsely accused of rape is because they don't know what rape is. They don't understand things like, in affirmative consent states, if the victim seems unsure, without even saying anything, she is not consenting to sexual activity. And if the man proceeds anyway, he has committed rape. If a victim is unconscious or incapacitated due to drugs or alcohol, she cannot consent to sex, and a man having sex with her has committed rape. No means no. Many men don't understand this and have sex with a woman anyway, even when she is saying no. Culture has told them it is acceptable to do this, but it is actually rape. A victim can withdraw consent in the middle of consensual sex, and if the other person continues anyway, he has committed rape. The culture of not believing victims of sexual assault has led to 1/3 of victims contemplating, attempting, and completing suicide. Rape victims are 13 times more likely to commit suicide than anyone else in the population because they are systemically not believed. By not believing victims who report assault, you are many times more likely to kill a victim and or create more victims. Most rapists are repeat offenders and have an average of 6 victims. Then you are likely to convict an innocent man. Please make sure to educate yourselves on this very important topic because you are all potential jury members, and the only way for our society to reduce its problem with sexual violence is through education. And then I give a list of resources where people can find references to all the facts in my comment. I also made a follow-up comment because I couldn't fit everything in the first comment. I said, also, the regretted sex buyer's remorse is a common myth spread among police. It is completely false. Rape victims who report and go through the justice system often call the experience a second rape because of how re-traumatizing it is for them. It is an incredibly difficult experience. They are scrutinized in inhumane and unreasonable ways by the defense. It is often a years-long process, and many victims state it is more traumatizing than the assault itself. It is unreasonable to claim that anyone would put themselves through that experience just because they regretted the sex. Police departments have a culture of disbelieving rape victims, and this is the type of rhetoric they use. The many reasons for a rape victim to make something up are manufactured in order to silence victims. Yes, there is a very long list. It covers every single victim in every single situation, and it works very well at doing what it was created for: undermining victims' testimonies and keeping offenders from being held accountable. If you continue to believe the myth, women often lie about being raped, then you will always find reasons to disbelieve the victim. It is called confirmation bias. Look it up. I was not able to fit all of the references in my previous comment. Here are a couple more. Message me if you would like more material. I am more than happy to share all the information I know about sexual assault. The myth that women reporting rape just had consensual sex and then regretted it is particularly troubling. To date, I have not found a single scientific article that states this. It appears to me that this is a completely manufactured myth that is very popular within police departments. It is circulated round and round, and when everyone in your circle is saying it, you come to think that this is just common sense. But again, I have never found a single scientific article that states that a woman said, "I regretted the sex, so I called it rape." If you have found a scientific article that says that, please send me the link. I would love to read it. The notion that it is extremely easy to convict someone of rape just by falsely accusing them of it would be laughable if it wasn't so horrible. It's so extremely far from the truth. As I explained in my comment, rape is the hardest crime to convict someone of, and conviction rates for rape remain obscenely low compared to other violent crimes. Our society does not have a problem with false allegations of rape. Our society has a problem with rape, and it is this myth that false allegations are a big problem that keeps offenders from being held accountable.